Повестка дня данного заседания гласит поддержание международного мира и безопасности, эффективная многосторонность через защиту принципов Устава Организации.
뭔 개소리야!
Russia.
Russians.
It is a sad reality that today's topic has been proposed by those illegally using force against Ukraine's territorial integrity and political independence.
This little blue book is written in plain language, and I want to read it to you. Article 1. The purposes of the United Nations are to maintain international peace and security.
For Russians, the world is getting smaller. Russia's claims to Ukraine's territory will never be recognized.
It is an irony, even a tragedy, that the Russian Federation, a permanent member of the Security Council, continues its unilateral aggression against Ukraine while hosting an open debate.
The topic of today's open debate is timely, as we have been witness to various acts inconsistent with the UN Charter, and the Security Council, for its part, has not lived up to the world's expectations. It is a sad reality that today's topic has been proposed by those illegally using force against Ukraine's territorial integrity and political independence. No one could have expected total ignorance of the UN Charter from a permanent member of the Security Council. The United Nations is the embodiment of multilateralism. The Republic of Korea believes that making this organization well-functioning is the way to pursue effective multilateralism. In this regard, we need to first recall what we have agreed to. All UN members agreed to the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and rendered their consent to be bound by it. Its purposes constitute the raison d'etre of the organization, in particular the determination to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, enshrined in the first line of the preamble of the Charter, indicates that the UN's ultimate goal is to suppress war, which, needless to say, includes wars of aggression. In this sense, the principle of prohibiting the threat or use of force is the heart of the UN Charter, as pointed out by the prominent Russia-born international lawyer Louis Henkin. No one can deny that the principles reflected in Article 2, paragraphs 3 and 4, are core values that all UN member states must uphold all the time. The so-called legitimate security concerns contained in the concept note cannot and will not justify any use of force incompatible with international law, nor can they be excuses for any illegal acts against the binding Security Council resolutions, as well as systematic, widespread, and gross human rights abuses. Mr. President, speaking of the Council, it has frequently failed to fulfill its mandate conferred by the Charter. For instance, the Security Council has remained silent on DPRK's flagrant violations of multiple Security Council resolutions since the vetoes wielded by 2 permanent members last May. For its part, the DPRK has issued official statements more than 10 times over the past year which reject the legitimate work of the Security Council and the Secretary General. For example, last Monday, the Vice Chairman of the DPRK's Central Military Commission made a threatening remark to oppose even convening the briefing on the DPRK at the Security Council. The DPRK's Foreign Minister, Choi Sun-hee, called the Secretary General a puppet of the United States, as he condemned its ICBM launch last November. DPRK's words and deeds manifestly run counter to the Charter of the United Nations. It is astounding that there exists a UN member that is so outspokenly and consistently hostile to the main UN bodies and completely ignores its basic obligations under the Charter. If the Security Council is really serious about effective multilateralism and the defense of the Charter, then it must first deal with such cases of outright non-compliance more seriously and effectively. Dear colleagues, the government of the Republic of Korea is a staunch supporter of universal values, such as freedom, human rights, and the rule of law, which are inextricably connected with the UN Charter. We reaffirm our dedication to the Charter, the truly universal instrument which does not permit unilateral arbitrary interpretations. The very existence of the Republic of Korea, which barely survived an act of aggression 70 years ago and pursued economic development and democratization with the help of the United Nations, is a living testament to effective multilateralism. This makes us feel all the more responsible for the defense of the UN Charter. My government will undertake to seriously engage in achieving such a noble goal. I thank you, Mr. President.
This little blue book is written in plain language, and I want to read it to you. Article 1. The purposes of the United Nations are to maintain international peace and security, territorial integrity, respect for human rights, international cooperation. These are our values. Our hypocritical convener today, Russia, invaded its neighbor, Ukraine, and struck at the heart of the UN Charter and all the values we hold dear. And as we sit here, that aggression continues. As we sit here, Russian forces continue to kill and injure civilians. As we sit here, Russian forces are destroying Ukraine's critical infrastructure. As we sit here, we brace ourselves for the next Bucha, the next Mariupol, the next Kherson, the next war crime, the next unconscionable atrocity.
We've seen what Russia's idea of multilateralism means for the world. More than a year into Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, President Putin has brought unimaginable suffering to that country while trampling on the UN Charter. Thousands of Ukrainians have been killed. Millions have been displaced. And across the world, billions have faced rocketing commodity prices and food insecurity. Trust in Russia's promises to other states and to its own people is at a catastrophic low. For Russians, the world is getting smaller. Many tens of thousands of Russian men and women have been killed. Hundreds of thousands have been mobilized against their will. Millions are fleeing the country to escape the draft. Independent journalists have been arrested. Free speech has been crushed. Russia's economy is shrinking. Its army is in disarray, reliant on Wagner, an unaccountable mercenary group. A Russian generation has lost its future, and the Russian government can't even explain why. Russia's justifications for the war, defeating Nazis and defending against bioweapons, are obvious falsehoods. Russia's claims to Ukraine's territory will never be recognised. The UK will continue to stand together with Ukraine as it lawfully defends itself.
It is an irony, even a tragedy, that the Russian Federation, a permanent member of the Security Council, continues its unilateral aggression against Ukraine while hosting an open debate on effective multilateralism through the defense of the principle of the UN Charter on the very International Day of Multilateralism and Diplomacy for Peace. Russia must first and foremost withdraw all its troops and equipment from the territory of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders immediately and unconditionally.